Today we're going to take a look at an absolute beauty from Grand Seiko. This Tentagraph chronograph is hand assembled in the Shizukuishi studio in Japan, and that is located in Iwate Prefecture. That is the studio that exclusively creates 9S mechanical movements. It's all done there, from the creation of every component to the assembly, to the 6-position adjustment, and the final QC inspections. That all takes place in that Shizukuishi studio. Now, this movement is called the 9SC5, and I find it a very impressive caliber from a design, a spec, and a finish standpoint. It is housed inside a hardened titanium case, and this hard titanium is more scratch resistant than standard titanium and roughly 100 Vickers harder than standard stainless steel. This is also mirror Zaratsu polished by hand, and I think looks so good. Thanks to Exquisite Timepieces for sending in this new for 2025 color of the Tentagraph chronograph. Exquisite is my recommended Seiko, King Seiko, Grand Seiko authorized dealer. They're a family-owned AD in Florida. They're a huge supporter of the collector community. So if you're shopping for any of the brands that they carry up to 60 brands, definitely check them out. I recommend them. Now, this Tentagraph, meaning a chronograph with a 10 beat per second rate, this is part of the brand's Evolution 9 collection. The Evo 9 is a new design style that Grand Seiko launched in 2020, and that is just a celebration of the brand's 60th anniversary. So it's really kind of the latest and greatest from Grand Seiko. Evo 9 cases sit flatter on the wrist. They generally have a more dramatic taper of the case and lugs, a wider, thicker bracelet that definitely feels a bit higher quality than other Grand Seiko bracelets, and they generally have applied markers and hands that are wider and more eye-catching. This watch boasts a bi-layer dial with a Mount Iwate texture. It's a beautiful defined texture with a silvery blue finish or color, very light. In fact, in most scenarios, this looks mostly silver with just a hint of baby blue. I think it's striking in person. I think this pops, especially when you're outside in natural light. Notice how deep the black concentric subdials are. I find that very sharp. Those subdials have an ever so faint concentric texture to them. The applied markers are tall, they're faceted, they're mirror polished, and they do a great job at standing out, at reflecting light. So this watch does not suffer from any at-a-glance legibility issues. Even in low-light conditions, the lume is surprisingly good, and especially on those wide hand members. Now, the other dial details are impressive. I like the polishing of the subdial surrounds. I like the chamfered hand caps. I like the angled date frame, and I like the applied logo and applied text. So the text appears perfectly crisp. It stands out in contrast to the very defined Mount Iwate texture. And I also want to note that Mount Iwate is only about a 30-minute drive from this Shizukuishi studio where the watch is made. And personally, I appreciate how Grand Seiko uses regional elements, natural elements as design inspiration. It deepens my admiration of this truly Japanese brand. Now let's take a closer look at the movement. 10 beats per second, making it a true high beat caliber. This has 3 full days of power reserve, and I think that's impressive for a high beat chronograph. So the chronograph could absolutely be engaged. It can be used for the entirety of that 72-hour window. No other brand does that. Now, this has a 60 joule overall count, which is pretty high. It also has a patented dual impulse escapement that they've designed. It has a column wheel, a vertical clutch, a 3-pointed hammer, and that is to allow for perfect, instantaneous reset synchronization. This caliber also has MEMS production of some of the small skeletonized components, and Grand Seiko is also using a traditional variable inertia regulation system within this free-sprung balance. They've created a new overcoil shape. It took them about 80,000 different simulations of various shapes, all to arrive at the optimal form for multi-position stability. Guys, I don't know if you're like me, but I like nerding out over some of these impressive aspects. It's not just about the beauty, it's about the design, it's about the thought process, and it's about the functionality. This movement has twin barrels. They house the long power reserve, and the twin barrels ensure an even release, or a more even release, of the energy. The movement is regulated to 6 different positions, multiple temperatures, and it's spec'd to be accurate to a window of -3 to +5 seconds per day. Although Grand Seiko says that if you're wearing this day to day, you should expect accuracy of -1 to +8 seconds. So technically, it's not going to run slow, or it shouldn't run slow, which is important to many watch collectors. One other Easter egg that I think is worth mentioning is the shape of the main plates. So the main bridge has a curved outline, and that mimics the shape of Mount Iwate, which again is super close to where this watch is produced. Some of the other curves of the plates, they mimic the various bends of the Shizukuishi River. And again, that's just another regional design aspect that no other brand that I know of does. The finishing is good with striping, purling, and mirror polished screws. I like the coated engraved text. I like the fact that the winding rotor is skeletonized, and that allows for more of the movement to be visible at any given time, and that's important. Viewing the movement is a must with a watch with a retail price of $14,700. You want to be able to see one of the main reasons for that retail price. And just to put this into perspective, this is still $1,300 less expensive than a Rolex Daytona at retail. But that doesn't mean that it's not still a financial stretch for many watch collectors. I just wanted to illustrate how nice of a watch you can get, arguably more impressive in multiple aspects than the popular Daytona, which is priced at a higher retail level. Now, I want to end by showing a few other aspects of this Tentagraph chronograph. This has an angled ceramic bezel. This has a thread down signed crown. The watch has 100 meters of water resistance, and it has inner layers of anti-reflective coating on the sapphire crystal. There's a fully brushed 5-link high-intensity titanium bracelet, and that bracelet has a longer sport-style clasp with 4 different micro adjustment positions. I like the fact that Grand Seiko put a sport style clasp on this sport watch, but unfortunately, this is an old school style. It does not have a modern quick adjustment system. You will need a small tool to make the positional changes for the micro adjustment. Now, just in summary, I think this watch is a masterpiece. Every aspect of the design is well thought out, and every aspect of the watch is executed at the top level. When you see this in person, when you put it on wrist, there's just no doubt that it's a special watch. It stands out as a beauty, but it also doesn't attract public attention in the same way that a Rolex Daytona would. So yes, it's eye-catching as a beauty, but when people see the name Grand Seiko, most people, they would have no idea that this is a 5-figure chronograph. So it kind of flies under the radar in that way, which I know a lot of watch collectors look for. So yes, it's expensive. And yes, it's modernly sized at 43 millimeters, but I don't anticipate this having a super large market. And I think Grand Seiko feels similarly. You'll only find this watch at Grand Seiko boutiques and Grand Seiko salons. It won't be at every AD. Reach out with questions. Let me know what you think. If you're shopping Grand Seiko, definitely consider Exquisite. They support the collector community really well and make videos like this possible on my channel. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.